former Israeli ambassador to the United Nations. And Mr. Ambassador Danny, let me ask you, last time you were here, you discussed your quiet contacts, maybe even some secret contacts with officials, collaboration from those countries. Your reaction on seeing it now come out in the open, it's official, Israel creating relations with the UAE and Bahrain?
Very exciting, a historic moment for Israel. We worked with our allies in the Gulf for many years, but we have done it quietly. And now we see a beautiful ceremony. They come publicly, recognize Israel, and it's only the beginning. We heard the president saying there will be more coming, and he was actually encouraging them to come to the White House and to sign more peace accords. And I think it will bring more investments to Israel. It will help our economy, and it will help to bring stability to the region. I'm sure the Iranians were not happy today. The Turkey leaders were not happy today. But for the majority of the people of the Middle East, it was a great day.
Talk to us a little bit about how it felt for you to actually be watching the ceremony. You've got the President of the United States, the Prime Minister of Israel, and the Foreign Ministers of the UAE and Bahrain standing in front of their flags, signing these historic accords. Talk us through, given the history for this region, what it actually meant and how it felt for someone who has been so involved in this particular region.
So in the last 5 years, I was very involved, building the connection, building the bridges. I have visited the UAE. I have very good friends in Abu Dhabi and Dubai. And I always told them, why you are so afraid? Why we are meeting in a hotel room and we are hiding? Let's speak about what we are doing against Iran. Let's speak about the cooperation. And they were always telling me, not yet. The time will come. And today, it came. And I think today we see that there's a chance for peace among the people. Because we have very important agreements with Egypt and Jordan, but we don't see a genuine relations between Israelis and Jordanian. But when I speak with my colleagues in the UAE, they want to come to Israel. They want us to come to visit the UAE. So I think we will see a different kind of peace.
Right. Now, Danny, if there was one moment during that ceremony that perhaps Prime Minister Netanyahu was a little less comfortable with, it would be when the UAE ambassador thanked him publicly for halting the Israeli annexation process or extending sovereignty to the West Bank. He seemed to make a point of that. Now, that's a position, annexation, that you supported in your political career prior to becoming the ambassador to the United Nations. How do you feel about that? Was that a price that you feel Israel was worth taking in order to make these ties with the UAE and Bahrain?
First, you know, you always have domestic politics here in Israel, but also.
Well, this was the foreign minister of the UAE making that.
They also have domestic politics, not only here in Israel, and for sure this is an important issue. I don't call it annexation. I refer to it as applying sovereignty. Right. I think it is a decision of the Israeli government. Period. We don't need to get a permission from anyone. When Prime Minister Menachem Begin applied sovereignty in 1981 over the Golan Heights, the U.S. administration was furious. President Reagan threatened to punish Israel, and look where we are today. We have full sovereignty over the Golan Heights. The U.S. is recognizing our sovereignty over the Golan Heights. So I think we will have to continue to push for applying sovereignty. And at the end of the day, it's about the Israeli government taking that decision.
We were talking to our correspondent, Mike Wagenheim, in Washington earlier. He alluded to the fact that we don't actually know a lot of details about what is in these accords, but we do know that Donald Trump spoke to Fox News earlier on in the day, and he said he has no problem selling F-35s to the UAE. Break down for us what this means for Israel. How serious is this?
So it is a serious issue. We have dealt with that in the past, the legislation in the U.S. about making sure we will have the qualitative edge, and it will continue to be that way. In the past, when we tried to fight against the U.S. selling aircrafts to moderate Arab countries, it wasn't easy. At the end of the day, they did sell those aircraft. But the question is, what was the technology that was involved? What was the level of equipment, weaponry? So I think we will have a lot of negotiations with our colleagues in the U.S. They will listen to us, but we don't tell the U.S. what to do and not what to do. They are committed to our qualitative military edge, and it will continue to be that way.
Right. Now, Danny, one missing aspect or one notable absence from the ceremony today was representation from Saudi Arabia, and certainly that would be the biggest get for Israel diplomatically. Do you believe there's any chance of Israel normalizing relations with Riyadh before it reaches some kind of agreement with the Palestinians?
I believe so. And today, for years, I came here and I said we have to change the paradigm. It's not about us first signing agreement with the Palestinians and then getting the Arabs on board. Exactly the opposite. We should get them on board and they will help us to bring the Palestinians to the negotiating room. And today we proved it. The president accepted this paradigm. The leaders from the Arab countries, the Arabian Gulf, accepted this paradigm. So I think we want to see the Palestinians joining us, but they would have to understand that we are not waiting for them. The same way we did with moving the embassies of Guatemala and the US to Jerusalem, we are moving forward with signing treaties with many Muslim countries from all around the world without waiting for them.
Talk to us a bit about the optics of what we saw today for Israel on the global stage. We not only saw Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu sitting in the Oval Office with the President of the United States, we actually also heard the President referring to the Prime Minister's wife as Sarah, and one got a sense of a very comfortable banter between the two of them. Why is this important, particularly now, for both Israel and the US?
We always speak about the special bond we have, and I felt that the UN, when I worked with Ambassador Nikki Haley and Ambassador Kelly Craft, we knew we can count on one each other. And by the way, it goes both ways. We always speak about the US supporting Israel. But when there was a vote in the General Assembly about applying sanctions against Cuba, I was the only ambassador that entered the General Assembly to vote with the US. So it is the strongest ally you can imagine. We will continue to do it, and it has nothing to do with politics. It will continue to be before the elections and after the elections.
Danny, as you say, there's always domestic politics. This was maybe the best of weeks, in some ways the worst of weeks for Prime Minister Netanyahu, that inspiring scene at the White House, but the country in a coronavirus crisis going to this lockdown. How much do those balance out each other politically for Prime Minister Netanyahu?
So we're in the middle of a crisis. You know, I came from New York a few weeks ago, and I saw the way that the leaders of the city handled the crisis, and today they're opening up. So we can do it also here, but we have to be more disciplined to follow the guidelines, and I hope that in a few weeks we'll be able to open up and to recover with our economy.
And finally, Ambassador, give us a sense, given your experience in this part of the world, exactly how significant what we witnessed today in the White House is for Israel and the broader Middle East right now. Final thoughts.
So you have the bad guys, mainly Iran, and you have the good guys. And today the good guys got the support of the US, of the President of the US, of the American people. And I want to send a message to all of those people in the Middle East who are watching us that yes, we can bring peace, we can change the reality, and we will stand together against Iran and their proxies.
All right, Ambassador, former Ambassador Danon, still Ambassador by title, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
On I-24 News.